what percentage do you think, say they flush the first time on 20 grams, how many people actually flush on more the second time? Say they do it 2 or 3 weeks later. Is it like half the population? Is it more than that?
I would say based on the reports that we had over, thousands of reports, your deficit in ascorbate is identified the first time,
okay,
but then the body begins to repair, and now next week you will need more.
You need more, okay.
90% of the time.
90% of the time, okay.
Oh yeah. This is the rule, and this is the recommendation. You repeat it weekly and ramp up to plateau. After a certain number of weeks, you will get the same amount to cleanse 2 or 3 weeks in a row.
Okay.
At that point, it's still quite okay to do a cleanse the next week, but once you get 2 or 3 values at plateau, you can stay on that until you have overcome the repair deficit. And when you've overcome the repair deficit, now your stools will get bulkier and more frequent. And Dennis Burkitt recommends that. They should be bulky and float, not small, pencil-shaped and sink. So at that point, you repeat the C cleanse and ramp down. And the goal is to cleanse on 4 to 6 grams and therefore take in maybe 3 to 4 grams a day. But that means you're in a very efficient recycling of ascorbate, rather than what today is an excess of oxidative anti-nutrients that increase the amount of ascorbate you need by orders of magnitude.
Yes. Now, 4 to 6 grams, we find that to be fairly low for a flush dose, and that's because our population is in severe deficit. They're in recovery mode. They're
Well, yes, if they're Americans, they need more ascorbate, and it will take more than 4 to 6 grams on the initial time to cleanse.
Yeah.
Plus, I think
however, the goal is to overcome that. Go the ramp up, go to plateau, keep at plateau until the repair deficit is overcome, and then come down.
And I think that's what happens. They don't. I think they don't sustain to that level, and so they're always picking up from where they left off, and so
that's right.
They don't get
I'm so glad you said that, Jayashree. I'm so glad you pointed that out. Our recommendation is our recommendation. The folks who follow that, I think, get synergistic benefits. On the other hand, I understand that just the process of doing a cleanse is a commitment. It's a commitment of time. It's a commitment of value. Yeah. From our point of view, it saves lives and it saves treasure, and it's a smart thing to do, especially in the 21st century. But we do recognize that many people who benefit from it, they'll do a cleanse and then they'll take vitamin C based on that. But instead of doing it every week until they reach plateau, they're constantly restarting. And I would imagine, Susan, that you have many people who are in that category.
Right. And we should
let's make little videos. Let's show people that when you follow the full plan, you get synergistic benefits in a myriad of ways, not the least of which is being resistant to whatever is the pandemic du jour.
I think it's really very important. People are starting to have an awareness of the value of vitamin C as an antioxidant and as a repair agent. They haven't quite got the buffering part yet, except for what we're trying to teach, but maybe what you're teaching him. But that idea of exactly how to do it, and that that there's a system where you bring it up gradually, you're repairing the body at each step of the way. When you reach a plateau of repair, then you're able to decrease. And maybe then people would end up on 4 or 6 grams?
Oh, I have examples. I have examples on all sides. So
it seems like that's kind of low, yeah.
No.
Because they haven't done the complete repair is what would happen.
Right. So yes, there are colleagues who have followed exactly what we suggested. And when they got through the ramp down, they were more flexible. In fact, usually they were taller, they were leaner, they were more eager to engage and get out but they also got restorative sleep, etc. And when their immune defense and repair systems were measured, they were really active on their behalf, yet tolerant and not overly active or out of control. Yes, it's still a minority. Yes, this is the generation after bowel tolerance. I think there's reasons to not look at the bowel tolerance approach, with all due respect to Dr. Cathcart. And I did get to talk with Linus Pauling about why he recommended first 9 grams and then 18 grams for everyone. And he said, well, frankly, people can't really get committed to doing what they need for themselves as an individual. And doctors can be taught a number, like 18. I said, Dr. Pauling, isn't that a bit anti-intellectual? Isn't it really about the individual and how much oxidative burden and how much detoxification they need to do, and what the environment is and their relationships? He said, of course.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that Erwin Stone, his next door neighbor, who actually introduced Professor Pauling to ascorbate, was there. And with respect, I think the personalized approach that we have, including the C cleanse and the first morning urine pH to check magnesium choline citrate needs and so forth, have now stood the test of time. They were always evidence-based, but now the clinical results are getting clearer and clearer as more and more people are just willing to follow the guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so it's going beyond the bowel tolerance of Cathcart and these people, which is sort of what Linus Pauling said. If people can sort of get the idea that they should take enough of it to maybe get a loose stool, but not the concept of that you can ignite repair and get the body back into rebalance by titrating that up and then carefully maintaining that for the time necessary for the repair to take place and then reducing it.
Very important, because if you creep up using the bowel tolerance approach, you are likely to recirculate toxins and feel worse. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you ramp up the ascorbate quickly using the C cleanse approach, right, you're going to remove toxins and extra fluid, because remember, the rectum is embryologically part of the kidney. Mm-hmm. And it's not that you pour the ascorbate in the mouth into the intestines and it flows through the 20 feet in that short period of time. Yeah. No, it comes into the body, it protects the body, and when all the cells of the body have enough, then an extra bonus is that ascorbate pumps the toxic matter and fluid into the rectum for evacuation. Yes. And it feels kind of like an enema from within, which is physiologically what it is.
So that's step number 1, that you do that cleanse, but the step number 2 is that you carefully maintain 75% of that cleanse dose for a few weeks, do it again to establish that repair that can go on for several weeks or several months.
Well, a good way of thinking about it is at least 1 week for every year that took them to get to you. So we can talk about a 6-month rehabilitation program, and that's what we typically recommend. Most of the time people come back and they're better, and they need another 6 months and maybe another 6 months in order to get into the category of being well. Mm-hmm. And yes, you might feel better. Almost everyone does after the cleanse. But you can't declare victory just because you did one smart thing. Yeah. And doing it weekly, not electively every once in a while, doing it weekly dramatically improves the speed and the effectiveness of the repair. And what are you repairing? Repair deficit in blood vessels, including lungs and heart. Repair deficit in the fascia connective tissue. Repair deficit in the basement membranes that are responsible for bringing in the good stuff and getting the bad stuff out of every cell in your body. Mm-hmm. And then your liver and your spleen that are supposed to clean every blood cell in your body every time they wiggle through. And the cells have to wiggle, which means they have enough antioxidants and enough buffering minerals. Yeah. And if they're under oxidative attack, then they get rigid and vitamin C depleted. And now they don't get cleaned.
Yeah.
And that's one aspect of repair deficit known as inflammation. And another aspect is self-attack known as autoimmunity. And we know how to tame it. It's no longer an external enemy and a dark stranger in the night. We know how to restore tolerance, resilience, and repair ability with this kind of program.
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. We definitely,
I do want to have maybe Jayshree talk about the fact that after people do their first cleanse, sometimes because of their prior digestive microbiome problems, if they go immediately to 3/4 of the dose, which I do recommend eventually, they may have more loose stool.
Right.
And therefore, I think sometimes, Jayshree, don't you recommend that they start on half the amount to induce the cleanse every day until the next week when they repeat the cleanse,
Right.
and then they work up as they improve their digestive competence, they can work up to that 3/4 goal.
Exactly. Because very often, especially if they have cleansed with an amount that is on the higher side, where we do see folks cleansing sometimes at 50 to 60 grams, then the very next day, sometimes there is residual bowel movement, which is a little bit too much for the body to tolerate the next day. So, and then we do advise that they take, 75% of their flush dose, which are the cleansing dose, which is a considerable amount, right, the very next day. So rather than going from a complete from 50 to 60 grams to nothing at all the next day, just because they cannot tolerate it, we do suggest that they work themselves up and take a smaller dose. It could be even 5% for some folks. So 5 or 10% of what they have even would be good. If it's possible to do at least 50%, that would be great. But so that they slowly ramp up and then are ready for the next cleanse.
No, indeed. And I want to reinforce this message of being proactive and individual. And when we say the goal is 3/4 of the amount to cleanse, what we mean is what you cleanse might take a couple of hours to accomplish. However, the amount, that 50 to 75% or so, should be spread through the day.
Correct.
And if you need more than a morning and evening top-up, I suggest getting some kind of a jogger's-like bottle, a bottle that's sealed. You put your daily dose in and you sip on it throughout the day. And it helps you get better hydrated, because dehydration, just a little, 1 to 3% dehydrated, is a big stress on your kidneys, heart, lungs, brain, and gut, and liver.
and liver.
So being well hydrated, getting restorative sleep, preparing for restorative sleep, stretching. These are investments in life and in our future. And if we don't stretch, we contract.
Yes, exactly.
And if we don't stay well hydrated, we're dehydrated.
Yeah.
So there are many things we can do on our own behalf. However, in the 21st century, we really need to do them. And one of the questions we didn't get to address, but I want to raise is this really safe? Safe to do a sea cleanse, to do a sea cleanse once a week, to guide the amount of ascorbate you take in based on that? And I have a few comments. Part of it is personal. I am functioning at half my age, in part, I think, because of the supplements and lifestyle I live. The other point is that there is a fellow named Ed, and he will talk to you if you want, and he is an educator by profession. And it has been now 30 years that he has done a sea cleanse almost every day. Almost every day. And it takes him 100 grams. That's like 3.5 ounces. That's like, he goes through bottles of ascorbate every few days. I only mention this not to say that I am recommending it, but it keeps him happier. If he doesn't do these cleanses on an almost daily basis, I can see on the camera that his hands are swollen. He can't get his ring off his ring finger, but when he does the daily sea cleanse, he can. I only mention this to say that I believe he is the reigning champion in terms of doing more sea cleanses than any other living human being. And his main complaint today is that his friends are getting older, so I prescribe younger friends, which he did.
Mm.
Right.
But
Thank you.